Welcome to our daily reflection for this Tuesday, November 18th. And Jesus is making his way to Jerusalem. We're in this theme of the end of the liturgical year, this time of judgment, this season of judgment where the scriptures prepare us for that in our own lives. And Jesus, as he comes to Jericho, calls out to a tax collector, Zacchaeus, who repents. And he gives half of his property to the poor. And Jesus will say, salvation has come. Now, it's not just because he gave a monetary gift, because he's giving. And giving and generosity are a hallmark of charity. He has embraced charity and justice. He's going to, repay anybody he's defrauded. So he's repented. He's going to live a just life, but not just a just life, a generous life, which is the life of charity. And that is the road to us. So Zacchaeus shows us the way as we approach the end of our lives, the end of the liturgical year, the end of time, to see that the way to grasp charity is the way to find salvation. And so we want to embrace that. And the readings today from 2 Maccabees show us what to do in times of persecution, which Jesus warns will mark the end of time. And you have this great man, Eleazar, who is an old man and noble, and because he's well liked and beloved and respected, the people, the Jewish sympathizers who are going over to the pagans, tell him, look, we'll give you some meat to eat, that it's not pork, it'll be kosher meat, but you can pretend like you're eating pork meat so that we can spare your life. And he's like, no pretension. He's like, I'm too old to pretend, and I will give a bad example to the young who will then sin and actually eat pork, right? And unclean food and disobey God's law in order to obey the law of a pagan tyrant, right? And that's interesting. That's really one of the key themes here is about obedience, disobedience. Whom will you obey? Will you obey God, or will you obey the wicked government and administrators of that wicked government? That's the question. That is the test. And Jesus says in the Our Father, lead us not into temptation. Literally what that means is peirazo. Lead us not into the trial, because there was always this theme of at key moments in salvation history, for the story of the Jews, for the story of the church, there'll be times of ordeal, times of trial. This is one of it, and Eleazar comes out faithful. And I love what he says. He says, look, by manfully giving up my life now, right, I will leave the young a noble example. That's such a beautiful thing. And he says, and I will show them how to die willingly and generously for our sacred laws. What a beautiful martyr. What a beautiful, heroic example. I find Eleazar so inspiring. And then the psalm today is Psalm 3, which talks about being surrounded by the wicked and persecution and calling out to God. And what we find is that the Psalms are a roadmap for Israel and the church on how to navigate life in the world where the wicked and the unjust have power, they have influence, and they have oftentimes domination, and how we are to cry out to God that we may be faithful like Eleazar. So today, let's reflect on these readings, that we may be steeled with examples of courage and not conform to the ways of the world, but obey the one who matters most, God himself. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.